This 15-year-old boy is now globally wanted for using his superpowers to steal abilities from others. Not long ago, he only used his power to mentally control others for 5 seconds as a prank. The boy, named Osaka, would use his powers to uphold justice when encountering bullies on the street. He eventually discovered the proper use of his powers, cheating on exams. What seemed like a trivial skill became god level in Osaka's hands. During tests, he would invade the minds of top students, memorize answers in 5 seconds, and then select the most accurate ones by comparing with others. This way, he always ranked first in every exam. However, Osaka's ultimate goal was to get into a prestigious school. To identify the top students in joint entrance exams, he disguised himself and infiltrated various cram schools. By gathering information, he pinpointed a few top candidates. He repeated his trick during the exam and successfully got into the elite school. As a handsome freshman valedictorian, Osaka attracted many admirers. When girls confessed to him, he would seriously claim to prioritize his studies, though he actually thought they were not attractive enough. Osaka had already set his sights on the school goddess alone. He began to follow her daily, looking for opportunities to get closer. Upon seeing a truck approaching in the distance, Osaka hatched a plan. He first made the goddess's friend leave, then controlled the truck driver to crash towards the goddess, and heroically saved her at the last moment. After ensuring the driver was unharmed, he smiled, pleased with his flawless plan. This led to his first date with the goddess. The next day, when he laughed loudly upon receiving a text from her, a broadcast unexpectedly summoned him to the academic office. The student council president suspected Osaka of cheating on exams and asked him to retake the test, promising to believe him if he scored over 90. However, Osaka couldn't even score 19, let alone 90. Faced with the threat of expulsion if he didn't comply, he reluctantly sat down to take the test. Osaka initially planned to invade the president's mind to view the answers, but shockingly, he only saw images of erotic posters. Enraged, Osaka tore the paper to shreds. Just then, a girl with a video camera appeared and exposed all of Osaka's secrets, presenting video evidence. Osaka tried to deny everything by claiming illness, but his plan failed when she produced his clean medical record. Realizing his secrets were revealed, he quickly fled the classroom. The student adjusted his glasses, bent down, and quickly caught up to Osaka by accelerating in a crouch. Then, he took Osaka into the air with him, resulting in a thrilling, cordless bungee jump for 2. They ended up falling into the water, and after Osaka had swallowed enough water, he was pulled ashore. The male student revealed that he possessed the ability to move at high speeds, but couldn't stop precisely, which often landed him in the hospital. Osaka realized that this was another imperfect superpower, much like his own. At that moment, a girl approached and explained the situation. There were many others with similar superpowers, which would disappear after puberty. To protect them, she had obtained guardianship over Osaka and arranged for him to transfer to Hoshinumi Academy. As Osaka stood up to confront her, the girl suddenly vanished. Osaka, lying on the ground, learned about the girl's ability. She could make herself imperceptible to one person at a time, though others could still see her. It was yet another flawed superpower. The girl then extended an offer to Osaka. She needed his ability to help deal with similar superpower users. That evening, inside a cramped rental, Osaka and his sister were living together. His sister excitedly told him that their uncle had called. They could transfer to Hoshinumi Academy. Osaka then believed that the girl had not lied. Seeing his sister happy about reducing the family's burden, Osaka agreed to the move. Soon, the siblings moved to a new, more spacious and bright home. Seeing his sister so happy, Osaka stopped resisting the arrangement. Before leaving, he told the school beauty about his upcoming transfer. To his surprise, she did not react with sadness, but instead gave him a nice guy card and broke off their relationship. Still reeling from the breakup, Osaka found that the girl and others had come to the dormitory. They reintroduced themselves. The boy was Takajo, and the girl was the student council president, Tomori. With this, Osaka was set to start anew at Hoshinumi Academy. If you're thinking about cutting in line at the school cafeteria, Takajo has the answer. Before Osaka could grasp why Takajo said getting lunch was a matter of luck, Takajo had already used his high-speed ability. Due to his speed, he had to randomly grab a lunch like picking a blind box. After grabbing lunch with his right hand, he hurriedly dropped coins with his left. The server, recognizing Takajo's antics, knew it was another case of him cutting in line, a consequence of his uncontrollable speed. Osaka watched as Takajo, his face bloodied, joked about the lunch being good, and mentioned wearing protective gear every day. This is life at Hoshinumi Academy, where both confirmed and suspected superpower users are managed collectively. Tamori explained that if someone hadn't established the school to protect them, they would have been taken for human experimentation. Osaka thought it was a joke until Tamori stopped to tell him her brother had been a victim. After Tamori mentioned there was a bonus for completing missions, Osaka joined this group of individuals with flawed superpowers. Initially planning to use his usual tricks to gain favor as a new student, Osaka was surprised to find out that Tamori and Takajo were in his class, making his attempt to impress utterly fail. After class, Osaka entered the superpower operation room for the first time, sarcastically questioning the need for such professionalism to capture a bunch of kids. Just then, the door opened and a soaking wet collaborator entered, creating a GPS tracking system with just a drop of water. On his first mission, Osaka was surprised to learn that everyone's first task was to gather intelligence on any recent strange occurrences. When Tamori discovered a clue, she quickly involved Osaka. The operation was successful. Osaka controlled the target through mental invasion while Tamori hurried to search for evidence. As the target regained consciousness, Takajo swiftly stepped in to control them a second time. Their target appeared straightforward this time. A person with the god-level ability of X-ray vision, a skill Sanji had long coveted. After some investigation, they confirmed the individual. He was the president of the archery club. This time, Tamori confronted him directly. Despite his initial denial in the face of solid evidence, Tamori opened his locker, revealing that he had resorted to these measures only to treat his family's illness. Cornered, he produced a photo of Tamori, threatening to expose her if she spoke out. The X-ray vision, capable of color printing in just 10 seconds, was impressive. However, after Osaka's mental invasion, the photo was returned to Tamori. With no options left, the president resorted to violence, which angered Tamori. Frightened, he shot an arrow. In this critical moment, Takajo's high-speed ability proved vital. Finally, under Tamori's persuasion, the president decided to back down. The trio's coordinated actions were deemed completely successful. The boy furiously tearing up a pillow is Tamori's brother. Tamori claims he is composing music. However, when Tamori was still in middle school, her brother would compose daily with his guitar, hoping for a record deal. Back then, Tamori disliked music, but her brother wanted her to listen, as it was the sound he was chasing. Tamori, completely lacking musical talent, couldn't even distinguish between rock and post-rock. A company finally wanted to sign her brother, but their mother decided to send them to a boarding school instead, as someone was interested in her brother's superpower. On the verge of realizing his dreams, her brother reluctantly agreed after an intense argument. Their mother hoped for understanding. She needed to use her son's ability to lessen the family's burdens. Eventually, under their single mother's pleading, he consented. At the new school, Tamori quickly made friends but had to undergo daily medical checks. Although at the same school, she never saw her brother, who had become an experimental subject. His ability to vibrate air, once used to enhance his guitar's sound at concerts, was now being studied by scientists for disrupting signal communications. It took a year before Tamori saw her brother again. The once dream-chasing boy now had a vacant stare. Tamori also discovered her friends had purposely befriended her, leading her to distrust everyone. After her superpowers awoke, she escaped. Now, Tamori is grateful to the only person she trusts, who arranged for her brother to be in a good place. Osaka comforts her, promising a cure in the future. Initially meant to console her, Tamori reveals the harsh reality. Superpowered individuals are discarded like used batteries once their energy is depleted. This is why she fiercely protects superpowered people. Seeing his adorable sister at home, Osaka now has many more thoughts. After witnessing the tragic circumstances of Tamori and her brother, the sister-loving Osaka feels a stronger desire to protect. How tasty is the cafeteria curry that it brings tears to Osaka's eyes? Takajo wonders. Isn't it just medium spicy curry? But he doesn't know how long it's been since Osaka tasted normal food. If you had an adorable sister cooking for you every day, whether it's omelet rice, spaghetti, or curry, and she only used sweet pizza sauce, as a sister-loving brother, you'd likely eat it with tears too. Soon, Osaka receives a new mission. This time, the target is tough, possessing both spirit communication and fire abilities. Through investigation, they find this character is unique. Osaka discovers Takajo is a die-hard fan of idols. During their conversation, Tamori spots a suspicious person. As she chases after them, she gets knocked down. Osaka quickly activates his powers, but Takajo moves too fast, accidentally injuring Osaka. After questioning a man, they learn a TV station is looking for Yusa. Just after dispatching him, a red-haired boy stops them. When Tamori reveals Yusa's superpowers and demonstrates invisibility, the boy believes them. They arrive at a hideout where Tamori and Yusa start a friendly exchange. The cute idol suddenly transforms into someone else, violent, arrogant, and frightening. Takajo's idol dream is shattered. However, after their friend's persuasion, she retracts her powers. Tamori learns the truth. Misa can possess her sister Yusa at will and has fire powers. The reason for being chased is Yusa accidentally took the wrong phone containing compromising information about a TV producer. Initially, the violent sister wanted to burn down the TV station, but she decides to follow Tamori's advice after persuasion. Who would guess sweet Tamori could have any bad intentions? After summoning the producer, Misa, initially intending to resolve things peacefully, ignites the producer's subordinate upon hearing his arrogant remarks. This sparks an even more brazen show. Osaka makes the man stab himself with a knife. Takajo rapidly knocks down another, and then Tamori, invisible, beats up the producer. After this forceful approach, fear takes hold of the producer's heart. Once they gain control of the situation, they throw out the mobile phone, applying both pressure and persuasion to flawlessly complete their mission. Then, Tamori suggests that Yusa transfer schools to ensure her safety. Although this is the best option, once Yusa's superpowers fade, Misa will truly die. Entering the academy signifies a real farewell. Misa's friend decides to reveal their true feelings. It turns out Misa possessed Yusa following an accident, and the boy blames himself for everything. If you found out that the new student is a big star, would it be the same? With Yusa as the fourth member, Osaka still inwardly complains about Kumagami, who can only activate his powers when wet. This time, their target has telekinetic powers. Using location data and the latest sports news, Tamori identifies a player who pitches a butterfly ball. Explaining from a video close-up of the player's hands, Tamori details how the butterfly pitch uses the elasticity of the fingers when they snap to launch the ball, also known as a snap pitch. However, the technique shown in the video is a fastball, indicating the use of telekinesis. Upon arriving at the opposing school, Tamori straightforwardly warns of the pitfalls and dangers of being caught with superpowers, but the player vehemently denies everything. Tamori doesn't understand the player's stubbornness, and an angry Misa is ready to resolve it with fire. Fortunately, Osaka intervenes. The tense atmosphere is quickly broken, and eventually, Tamori thinks of a solution, deciding the matter with a baseball game. On the agreed date, the baseball game began. Under the opponent's telekinetic pitching, Tamori's team quickly struck out. However, Tamori noticed something unusual. The opposing catcher was of professional level. With perfect coordination between the two, neither side scored, and the game entered a deadlock until the final inning, still with no score. At this point, Tamori instructed Osaka to infiltrate the opponent's batter. The operation went smoothly, albeit comically. Unexpectedly, the opponent took a risky steal, scoring before anyone could react and taking the lead. In response, Tamori decided to use a sacrifice strategy. Takajo executed a short hit and then ran the bases at high speed, crashing into the wall as a trade-off to earn a base for the team. After Misa successfully advanced to base, Tamori sacrificed her own at-bat to walk 2 players forward. All depended on Otosaka's final hit. Unbeknownst to him, he had gradually mastered batting skills after infiltrating the batter earlier. Fortuitously, due to an error by the opposing team, Misa and others successfully ran the bases in the last inning, turning the score around. Tamori hoped the opponent would adhere to their agreement not to use superpowers again. The opponent also shared their determination to not overshadow their talented friend, a true professional-level player. Through Tamori's analysis and persuasion, the opponent's emotional conflict was resolved. Afterwards, Tamori allowed Otosaka to infiltrate the opponent, claiming it was a minor experiment and not disclosing the real reason to Otosaka. Tamori was called outside by a group of female classmates. Otosaka followed and watched helplessly as Tamori was bullied by the girls. Otosaka realized the reason was that Tamori's ability, which is visible to others when she uses it to hit someone, had damaged her reputation. Otosaka didn't approach her until the bullying had ended. Despite having only superficial injuries, Tamori was more concerned about the mission they had received. Kumagami had detected someone with levitation powers. Based on a magazine, Tamori guessed the person was in the mountains, so she decided they should all go shopping at the supermarket before heading into the mountains to investigate. Yusa, watching the 2 shop, began to imagine them as a couple. She had planned to ask Takajo about it, but decided to keep her distance after seeing his love-struck expression. The investigation consisted of a day of barbecuing and playing games at night. Bored, Otosaka sought out Tamori to apologize for not intervening earlier, but found it too difficult to say. Instead, he changed the subject to music. Tamori shared that the music was composed by her brother. Curious, Otosaka listened through headphones and found the melody strangely familiar, as if he was alone in an open space. Tamori was happy to find someone who appreciated her brother's music and mentioned that the composer was blind. She told Otosaka that people often find focused individuals particularly charismatic. Watching Tamori dream of making videos for bands, Otosaka felt a sudden surge of emotion. That night, Otosaka fell asleep listening to the music on his player, dreaming of his sister and a stranger, feeling a familiar kindness, though he couldn't see their faces. During the day, Otosaka felt that their investigation was just a pretext for shirking their duties, focusing instead on barbecuing and cooking outdoors, even taking hot baths in the wild. However, he didn't realize that this was actually Tamori's strategy. The presence of their group prevented the Esper from practicing levitation, forcing him to reveal himself to drive them away. Tamori, both charming and cunning, exposed the boy's lies and falsely claimed to have recorded evidence. When the boy approached to investigate, he fell right into Tamori's trap, revealing his levitation ability. As his secret was uncovered, he rushed to snatch the camera. Before Otosaka could understand what was happening, the boy had already grabbed the camera and soared into the air. Otosaka had no choice but to use his ability. Unexpectedly, after a mental invasion, Otosaka found himself floating 10,000 meters in the air. As he rapidly fell, the desire to survive spurred Otosaka to learn how to control another's superpowers, finally averting disaster at the last moment. Indeed, every child has dreams during adolescence, and upon acquiring unique superpowers, they believe these are divine gifts meant to fulfill their dreams. But Tamori, a good psychological counselor, helped the boy gradually accept reality. Back home, Otosaka for the first time encountered noodles without pizza sauce, a delicious taste he would never forget. However, his sister was adamant about the flavor, believing pizza sauce to be a family tradition that must be passed down through generations. Otosaka had not anticipated that his days away on a mission would lead to his sister catching a cold and developing a high fever. Guess how deep the grudge must be for Tamori to kick Takajo down. The story begins with this mission. Otosaka, as usual, started by making sarcastic comments. He questioned why the target's ability was called collapse instead of destruction. Although Tamori didn't understand either, she sensed something ominous about this ability. The location was nearby, right at the school dormitory. Tamori guessed that the children still in the dorm and not in class were likely sick at home. An offhand comment from Tamori made Otosaka's face turn pale. She noticed his panic because he remembered that his sister was sick in bed with a fever today. Although Tamori knew that siblings had a high chance of awakening superpowers, she decided to visit the sick first to investigate. However, Otosaka suggested keeping the group small. Yusa, being his sister's idol, could come, but adding the clueless Takajo would complicate things. They were ready to mentally invade, but when Tamori noticed, she diverted Takajo's attention. This led to the unfortunate scene with Takajo, as Tamori might have realized that Otosaka's power could usurp others. When Otosaka got home, he found his sister's classmates visiting, the cute female class president, a boy who had failed in confessing to his sister, and a silent girl. As he bid farewell to his sister's friends, the silent girl's resentful gaze struck Otosaka as strange. However, he didn't think much of it and invited Tamori and the others into the room. Otosaka had overlooked one detail: his sister's exaggerated reaction upon seeing her idol. Dinner was enjoyed in a cheerful atmosphere. After Yusa left for work, Tamori teased Otosaka, asking if this scene resembled their life after marriage, and coerced him into doing the dishes. Both were reluctant, yet his sister perceived their interaction as harmonious since they were completely in sync. After putting his sister to bed, the mood between the two in the hallway became serious. Tamori knew Otosaka found it hard to speak up, but still encouraged him to start investigating. Things went in the direction Otosaka feared the most. Although his sister couldn't remember her dreams well, she mentioned visions of the ground cracking. After hearing Otosaka's report, Tamori decided to gather more information before concluding. She advised Otosaka to keep his sister home from school for a few days. However, contrary to plans, his sister, after recovering from her fever, sneaked off to school. Tamori, who was tasked with monitoring her, quickly called everyone to gather because she had a bad feeling. Just as everyone took a shortcut to the school, his sister ran into the silent girl in the hallway. The adolescent girl believed his sister had stolen the boy she liked. Although his sister vehemently denied the boy's advances, the girl saw her as the root of her problems. Upon hearing of his sister's death, Otosaka lost focus in his eyes. After the funeral, he returned home and began reminiscing about the moments he had shared with his sister. Now, Otosaka spends his days at home, avoiding reality, including the concern of friends. The goddess he once fervently pursued now seems like a stranger to him. One day, Otosaka noticed a strange man outside his door. Unsure who sent him, Otosaka decided to leave, indifferent to everything. His only thought was to escape detection by Kumagami. Without a specific destination, Otosaka settled into an internet cafe. When hungry, he ate pizza. When tired, he curled up and slept. He was relieved that no one found him in this cramped space. Eating the same food every day was boring, but he lacked interest in anything else. After many days, Otosaka decided to go outside. The sunlight was blinding to him, having not been out for a long time. Roasted skewers became his new food choice. Passing by an arcade, he was drawn in by the excited shouts inside. As he began slaughtering zombies in a game, he felt a thrill. With each game, his expression grew more fierce. The next day, Otosaka returned to the arcade. After finishing his skewers, he still couldn't get on a game. Anxious, he started picking fights. Seeing Otosaka alone, a gang leader decided to teach him a lesson. They left the arcade for a secluded area. Otosaka, wanting to vent, grinned fiercely as he activated his ability. What was once a trivial skill to copy answers for 5 seconds had turned into a brutal combat move. He quickly knocked down 3 thugs in a few rounds. However, a more terrifying incident occurred. A skewer stick from the roasted skewers pierced one thug's thigh, and that was just the beginning. As he finished the skewers, Otosaka ruthlessly stabbed another stick into another thug's body. Otosaka, drastically changed, laughed loudly at his handiwork. Soon he ran into more trouble with more thugs, but they shouldn't have provoked someone who had already given up on himself. Otosaka's skills kicked in, turning him into a cold-blooded warrior. This fight was over even quicker. Otosaka had now extended the thrill of slaughter from the game to real life, treating it all as a game of life. That day, He found an object that could lead to downfall. Just as he found a secluded spot to try it, Tamori suddenly appeared and stopped Otosaka from falling into an abyss.
私も責任を感じてるんです。だから私はあなたが立ち直るまで付き添う。
Unexpectedly, Otosaka heard a familiar voice again. In front of him was the childish omelet rice with pizza sauce he used to mock. It tasted just like his sister used to make. Tamori explained that his sister had followed their mother's recipe, noting down his favorite childhood flavors. Otosaka, who had no life goals, was finally persuaded by Tamori to return to the student council. There, he received various forms of care from everyone. For instance, Yusa personally greeted him, which increased his fans' resentment towards Otosaka. Takajo got a head injury while trying to get him limited edition curry. Tamori also had 2 concert tickets prepared for him. More interestingly, Otosaka met a blind man on his way home, feeling a strange familiarity. Initially intending just to greet him, Otosaka found out the man was quite forward. It turned out the blind man was the favorite band's lead singer of Tamori's brother. Now, they were sitting together having a meal. After learning about Otosaka's sister's death, the singer felt his sadness and later came to Otosaka's house to pay respects with incense. At that moment, Otosaka had a bold idea. After getting the lead singer's consent, he called Tamori, hoping to arrange a meeting between the singer and her brother, thinking it might lead to a miracle. Although Tamori was indifferent toward the singer, she agreed to let them visit her brother. I remember a saying, "You might not cry when a loved one dies, but everyday actions will make you realize they are gone." The singer sensed Otosaka's sadness, as he had just habitually tried to call his sister. There's a saying, blind in sight, but insightful in heart. The singer told Otosaka that he felt very gentle, a trait Otosaka knew was because of Tamori herself. Later, they met Tamori's brother, who was composing music. As the soothing song played, her brother stopped and after many years, regained some consciousness. After seeing the singer off, Otosaka received a call from Tamori. She was overjoyed by her brother's miraculous recovery. The next day, seeing Tamori dressed coolly, Otosaka's face turned red. Although Tamori bluntly said she didn't want to buy the same concert memorabilia as Otosaka, she still took his hand when they got there. Otosaka didn't know whether this was good or bad, but seeing Tamori happy with her purchase made him very happy too. The concert went on as scheduled. With the lead singer's high-pitched singing, everyone's mood was lifted. However, when a new song started, the familiar melody let Otosaka know he had heard it before. As the song progressed, many fragments flashed through Otosaka's mind, and he eventually fainted. This is a psychic research institute, where psychics like Otosaka are subjects of study. Today, as usual, he went to eat, but as Otosaka was leaving, an elderly researcher spoke to him. However, Otosaka didn't understand the terms like heterogeneous pioneer that the old man used. Otosaka dislikes the stimulant chemicals in the curry rice, but his sister never cared. She just wanted to eat together with her siblings. Otosaka told her that their brother, who could reverse time, would not be released. Seeing his sister almost cry out, he quickly covered her mouth. Just as Otosaka was pondering that his powers would eventually be discovered, Kumagami spoke to him from behind, asking Otosaka to plunder the nearby man's fracturing ability. At that moment, Otosaka realized his true ability. They were planning a jailbreak, but unexpectedly, as Otosaka was preparing to return, he found his sister being taken away for research. As he stepped forward to argue, he was knocked down by a stun gun. When he opened his eyes again, the entire base was trembling. Not knowing what was happening, he desperately banged on the door. In his desperate and hopeless moment, the door opened. It turned out the elderly researcher from before had saved him. The injured old man then told Otosaka that his sister's destructive skill had been forcibly triggered, damaging half of the base. The old man urged Otosaka to use his plundering ability to complete the jailbreak. Otosaka, holding the list Kumagami gave him of those whose abilities he needed to plunder for the mission, first found the telepath. Without hesitation, Otosaka activated his skill and stole the telepath's power. Then, using telepathy, he located his brother. Initially, his brother, thinking the conditions for the jailbreak were not yet ripe, tried to stop Otosaka. However, upon hearing that their sister was in trouble, they decided to take the risk. The institute was heavily guarded. Just as Otosaka was about to be trapped by hypnotic gas, a man suddenly emerged from the wall. He allowed Otosaka to plunder his penetration ability. Now, only Otosaka could complete the jailbreak. As the approaching soldiers raised their guns, the man pushed Otosaka into a room, shielding him from all harm. Otosaka had only one thought. He must find his brother using telepathy, or everyone's sacrifices would be in vain. Finally, using the last of his strength, Otosaka unlocked the lock for his brother. The most feared person in the institute was now free. He would change the world for everyone by using his ability to reverse time. Otosaka awoke from a nightmare, feeling as if everything had been so real. However, Tamori told him that he had fainted at the concert. As Otosaka's thoughts were in turmoil, he remembered his sister mentioning another family member. At that moment, Kumagami, showing his true face for the first time, appeared. Seeing that Otosaka was not surprised, he realized Otosaka remembered everything. Tamori also learned from Kumagami that her lifesaver was Otosaka's brother. After passing through several strict security checks, and as the gate opened, Otosaka met his brother Shunsuke. All the mysteries Otosaka wanted to know were slowly explained by his brother. The cost of reversing time is diminished vision. For his family's safety, Shunsuke ultimately chose to become blind. Escaping back to 3 years ago, although the 3 siblings were now carefree, Shunsuke knew he had to change the course of the future. He planned to first reunite with his former allies to prevent a tragedy 3 years later. Kumagami, who can sense supernatural abilities, found Shunsuke. Knowing that Kumagami understood his power, Shunsuke openly shared what would happen in 3 years. Kumagami believed Shunsuke, though he was skeptical about the nickname Winnie the Pooh. Soon, Kumagami brought Shunsuke to meet the rest of their allies. Knowing they might not believe him, Shunsuke began describing their abilities. Shichino, who could only pass through a wall once before losing his strength. Midoki, who would fall asleep herself when hypnotizing others. And Maidomari, who could precisely erase memories but needed to touch the person. Even though the allies believed Shunsuke, uniting their powers to fight the future was not easy. After all, they were just teenagers. Despite Shunsuke using his time-reversing ability multiple times, tweaking and perfecting the plan, they still failed. Thus, Shunsuke decided to change the strategy. They needed adult assistance. Yet before they could finalize the details, it was already the day before they were caught. While the siblings were eating cake, they saw a lottery announcement on TV. Shunsuke had an idea. He used his power to repeatedly go back and accumulate funds through various lottery and financial investments, establishing a massive organization to protect everyone. However, everything requires a trade-off. After using his power multiple times, Shunsuke realized the cost was his eyesight, but he had no regrets. However, this solution did not address the root cause. The Institute could still find isolated ability users. A casual remark by Otosaka suddenly enlightened Shunsuke. He immediately contacted Kumagami and decided to establish a school to keep them safe during their adolescence. With the last reversal of time, Shunsuke completely lost his sight. They used a puppet as the legal entity, and the school was finally built. Then, Shunsuke asked Kumagami for 2 favors: to erase his siblings' memories of him for their safety, and to establish more schools for ability users across Japan. Seeing such sacrifices from Shunsuke, Kumagami decided to live incognito, following Shunsuke's suggestion to let his hair hang loose, thus becoming a soggy ability user. With everything in place, Shunsuke returned home. Using his allies' abilities, he made his siblings defenseless and precisely sealed their memories of him. At this point, Otosaka and Tamori finally learned the whole truth. Now the brother hoped Otosaka would take away his ability, as only this would allow him to reverse time again and truly save his sister. If life could be lived again, I believe you would cry tears of joy like Otosaka did upon seeing his feverish sister again. Otosaka quickly checked the date on his phone, finally back to a time when he could make amends. Seeing Kumagami sense the crumbling ability again, and listening to Tamori's same plan for handling things, Otosaka decided to change everything this time. He told Tamori that his sister was the one with the crumbling ability, and asked her to act alone with him. As Otosaka saw his sister's classmates off, he caught that resentful look in her eyes again. In the corridor, Otosaka told Tamori he was from the future. Unexpectedly, Tamori believed him without hesitation, knowing the lengths Otosaka would go to for his sister. Back inside, Otosaka tricked his sister into thinking he was performing a magic trick, but he actually took her ability. Now, only one step remained. After sending his sister to school, Otosaka pondered his next move. Unbeknownst to him, Tamori and 2 others planned to infiltrate in disguise, but Otosaka could only lament their unreliability. The moment soon arrived when the silent girl with a knife approached his sister, and Otosaka, who had been waiting, suddenly appeared. Finally, Otosaka saved his sister. Back at the base, Otosaka told his brother about using the stolen power to save his sister. Understanding everything, his brother wanted Otosaka to spend his adolescence safely at the base. The brother took them on a tour of the base, where Otosaka met the elderly researcher who had once saved him. There they learned the origin of the anime's name. Charlotte is a comet that passes near Earth every 75 years, its particles granting humans abilities. It was the arrival of the Charlotte comet 12 years ago that gave them superpowers. Now, they had developed a vaccine to prevent such situations in the future because besides their own country, ambitious superpower holders in other nations were planning to overturn the world. Yet, things never go as planned. On this day, Kumagami was heading back to school as usual when unexpectedly, someone took the driver's family hostage and demanded Kumagami be brought to them. Kumagami, once handsome, now had a disfigured face and no teeth, but he still mocked his opponent. He underestimated their methods, however, and screamed in agony when injected with a truth serum. When he awoke, he found himself alone, realizing his secret had been leaked in a long-planned scheme. Tamori was awoken by noises, but her ability could only handle one person, and she was quickly knocked unconscious by the attackers. At the base, Shunsuke received a call confirming his worst fears. The attackers were foreign forces demanding Otosaka in exchange for the lives of Kumagami and Tamori. To stabilize the situation, Shunsuke temporarily agreed. After questioning the driver, Shunsuke learned that the attackers had been planning this since the academy was established. Faced with a daunting dilemma, reversing time meant returning to childhood, risking not being able to establish the academy again, and without Kumagami's detection ability, a direct attack was too risky. The team proposed the most likely successful strategy, letting Otosaka act alone, using his plundering ability to strike first, and if that failed, immediately using time reversal. After much consideration, Shunsuke agreed to the plan. However, he overlooked one thing. Otosaka was just a 15-year-old boy. Facing armed criminals alone and carrying the burden of saving his friends put immense pressure on him, causing him to lose control of his emotions. Shunsuke hugged Otosaka, calming him as he began to recall his moments with Tamori. After confirming the driver's family was safe, Otosaka initiated his plan by instantly controlling the minds of his enemies. However, he found no weapons on them and realized they were lightly armed, which indicated a failed operation. As he prepared to reverse time and start over, pain made him roll on the ground in agony. Otosaka, now blind in one eye, discovered he had lost his time reversal ability. The enemy had anticipated this move. Just as Otosaka attempted to use telekinesis to counterattack, he felt another sharp pain as a girl stabbed him again. The sudden intense pain caused Otosaka to lose control of his emotions, and his destructive power activated instantly, filling the old factory with cracks. Seeing this, the enemies hurriedly fled. Under the destruction caused by his collapse ability, Shunsuke and others arriving later saw the factory now reduced to ruins amidst severe tremors. Although unsure why Otosaka did not use time reversal, Shunsuke and his team quickly started rescuing people from the debris. Fortunately, in the final moments, Otosaka used telekinesis to save himself. Seeing Otosaka, now one-eyed, his brother guessed the reason. As his companions informed Shunsuke, they discovered Kumagami and Tamori. It was just a miscalculation, but the cost was losing a reliable partner. Only then did Otosaka realize that to his brother, Kumagami was not just a partner, but a best friend in life. After this incident, Otosaka's mindset began to mature. When his sister visited, he could even joke about his loss of an eye. Having experienced his sister's death, Otosaka now worried his brother might become like he once was. Otosaka, gradually recovering, welcomed a visit from his friend Takajo. Curry beef was a testament to their friendship. Soon after Takajo left, Yusa came to visit, bringing her homemade cream soup. It reminded Otosaka of the kindness he had once rejected. At that moment, Otosaka felt a sudden urge to talk to Misa about what happens after death. Though Misa was indifferent, Otosaka, moved by the moment, hoped Misa would care for those she valued before she disappeared. A few days later, Otosaka saw on TV that Yusa had used an outdoor shooting opportunity to visit her parents' soba shop. She suddenly transformed into Misa while enjoying her meal. Otosaka, watching Misa on TV, felt happy for her. Spending his 16th birthday on a hospital bed eating omelet rice was not something Otosaka had anticipated. Perhaps due to a change in mood, the same omelet rice now tasted delicious to him. When a recovered Otosaka found his brother, he saw a despondent figure, just like he used to be. Having lost Kumagami, his brother no longer had the confidence to face foreign threats. Unable to answer, Otosaka could only retreat to his room, where he unexpectedly encountered the recovered Tamori. He shared with her his brother's current state and his concerns. Unsure how to prevent the tragedy from recurring, Tamori proposed a bold plan. With a vaccine now available, future generations would not have powers. If Otosaka could take all existing powers, the issue would be resolved perfectly. However, gaining more powers could turn Otosaka into an even stronger monster, and it was uncertain if he could remain sane. Tamori found the plan too risky and urged Otosaka to forget it. As she stood to leave the room, Otosaka stopped her. He told Tamori that in another dimension, she had saved him from corruption, and now it was his turn to save her.
だったら言いましょう。待ってますと。その時、私たちは恋人同士になりましょう。
必ず戻ってくる。
はい。では、私から。
Determined, Otosaka didn't expect that the first power he would have to take would be Tamori's. Knowing he couldn't stop his brother, Shunsuke reassured him and promised to handle the local power users. He reminded Otosaka that he was already 16 and had only 1 year left before the end of his adolescence to complete the plan. On his way back, Otosaka's supporters, Takajo and Yusa, also offered up their powers. At that moment, Yusa, reading a farewell letter from her sister, realized they had always been living happily together. As Otosaka prepared to leave, he saw Tamori once again.
最低限やっていけると思います。
これを預かっておいてくれ。
はい。
じゃあ、行ってきます。
はい。いってらっしゃいませ。
Otosaka can now only sleep with the aid of medication due to the many powers he has stolen, pushing him to the brink of collapse. When he wakes and sees a massacre reported on TV, he realizes he is becoming the monster Tamori described, unbeknownst to himself. The myriad chaotic powers have started to confuse his memory, yet he previously needed Tamori's memo to get past security checks. Using his brother's connections, Otosaka obtained a list of local power users and tracked down their leader. He intended to interrogate the leader using Misa's fire ability after stealing his power, but was surprised to find the leader spoke English. As Otosaka struggled with his poor English, fortune smiled on him, and he discovered he had stolen the ability to read minds. This new power quickly revealed who had a search ability like Kumagami's. After stealing this ability, Otosaka could locate all power users on a map, initiating a targeted spree of power thefts. As more people lost their powers, Otosaka's appearance and nickname began to spread. After one theft, he learned of his nickname, the One-Eyed Reaper. That night, Otosaka reported to his brother that he had acquired the ability to stay awake indefinitely. Although his brother urged caution, Otosaka was eager to fulfill his promise. He then discovered another power user base, run like a military camp where children were trained as weapons of war. Otosaka found many dormant power users there. Recalling an old man's words from the research institute, he used his power to exacerbate their conditions, making their dormant abilities manifest for theft. As Otosaka's fame grew, so did the intensity of the attempts on his life. Although he managed to turn dangers into safety with various abilities, fighting the whole world alone was exhausting. Along his journey, Otosaka encountered the dark side of society, but also places where superpowers were used for good. However, even when performing good deeds, Otosaka stole all powers. A question that puzzled many was why Otosaka, who could heal his eyes, didn't use his powers to turn back time and save Kumagami. Otosaka believed that superpowers should not exist in the world. His goal was to restore normalcy, starting with not misusing powers to defy the laws of nature. Yet, the hundreds of powers he had stolen were beginning to disrupt his mental balance. Only a busy signal was heard on the phone, which filled his brother Shunsuke with worry. Otosaka, who faced dangers daily, had his memories jumbled, but his body had developed reflexes. Numb to most things, when a blue memo fell out, Otosaka seemed to remember something, and quickly dispatched his enemy. Otosaka now leaves no trace of life like locusts passing through. As he moved from country to country, those from whom he stole powers returned to normal, but Otosaka's expression grew fiercer and his actions more exaggerated. One day, after completing a mission, he began talking to himself in the desert, his mind consumed by the instinct to steal, even starting to believe he was a god. Just as he neared becoming a monster, a blue memo fell out. When Otosaka kicked it away in disgust but then rushed to protect it with his body, the memo acted like a talisman, preserving a shred of his clarity. The mission to steal powers continued, and Otosaka adhered to his promise with Tamori. Time passed unmeasured until after stealing a boy's ability, Otosaka realized only one power user was left. Suddenly, an enemy ambushed him from behind. Just as Otosaka was about to die at the hands of a bounty hunter, a girl shielded him with her body. Unexpectedly, the last power to steal was courage. Even more surprising, after stealing it, the girl continued to protect Otosaka without any superpowers, giving Otosaka a sense of relief. At the critical moment of Otosaka's life, his brother Shunsuke appeared and saved him. A gentle breeze and quiet surrounded him. Otosaka heard a girl's voice. It was Tamori, smiling at him and saying, "You've fulfilled the promise." Struggling to rise, Otosaka had forgotten who she was.
私はですね、あなたの恋人です。